Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you comfortable?
I'm very comfortable, Karl.
Right, okay, so we are going to press record right now to start the very first Peak podcast. Are you ready? You ready?
Let's do it.
Coming up on today's podcast.
What's it like not only being a parent, but being a parent of a neurodivergent child? There's a conversation.
The first one we've got is from Charlotte, who asks, how do we get our kids to sleep?
How best to manage repetitive topics of conversation about your child's special interests. You've heard it here that Karl is committing to jumping out the airplane with me.
This is the Peak Podcast. Come tell your story. Join the adventure. Find what you seek. Step by step, reach your peak potential.
Hey everyone, it's Marco.
Hello, that was Marco. This is Karl.
Sorry, I messed it up already.
No, there's no messing up.
Okay.
I can cut it. I can
All right, cool.
deal with it all in post. It's fine.
So you go first then.
All right, okay. I thought you were going for... No, it's fine.
Hey, this is Marco.
Hey, this is Karl. This is the Peak Podcast. Welcome in. How you doing today, Marco?
I'm doing well, Karl. I'm doing great. We've just done a community support session, met a lot of amazing parents, and we've just announced this podcast. And we told them all about it, and everyone's really excited about the fact that we've created this and what we're going to do with it.
I've been a absolute mixture of nerves and excitement. I've been like a chihuahua, just like shaking. Because I, you know, in my head, it's... yeah, this is going to go really well. This is going to be amazing.
It's going to be cool.
And then it's like, right, today you're actually recording. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah,
So,
if you could see Karl right now, a lot of hand movements, a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, this will all be on the video that doesn't exist. So,
No, it's good stuff.
yeah. Introduction. Who is Peak?
Who is Peak? Who is Peak and what is Peak?
Yes.
So Peak is an acronym. Peak stands for Parenting Empowered Autistic Kids. And it is a neurodivergent charity that was set up in 2020. And its purpose was to help children reach what we call their peak potential, the maximum opportunities that they have out there, because many children... and I'm going to start that probably again. So, yeah.
Don't worry about mistakes. Mistakes make the podcast.
They do make the podcast. You're right, Karl.
This will make the final cut. It's fine.
So, Peak Parenting Empowered Autistic Kids is a neurodivergent support charity that operates pre and post diagnosis. And what that means is that we work with children and families and professionals when they need to support the development and the rights of neurodivergent children. And we've been successfully doing that for 5 years.
Fantastic.
And I can tell you more about that later if you like.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I've known Peak since 2023, when we first got in touch with Peak, and it was yourself, Marco, and you've definitely helped us on our journey with it. I don't know if we'd be where we are without Peak. So, yeah, massive thank you for that. But this is my opportunity to give back to the charity that's done so much for me. I know I tried in October when we done the
and succeeded, I might add.
Oh, you succeeded. I did not.
You did your challenge. I did mine. Karl's referring to we walked 100 miles for autism, and I wouldn't have got to. Karl did the first half, and I finished off in the second half, and I wouldn't have got through to that second half had Karl not been there with me on the first half. So at the end of the day, massive inspirational person. I've known now Karl for a few years, and yeah, it's great. You know, in this world, we get together and we support our community, and then we develop friendships. And here we are now recording a podcast together.
Yeah.
No, it's great because yeah, we do have this great friendship, and I'm really grateful to Karl because he is so much more knowledgeable about podcasts. We've been talking about doing a podcast for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been on the cards for a very long time. But I never thought it would actually come into fruition. So I'm really glad it has.
Yeah. And it's and I guess, yeah, what we want to do with this is we want to add a voice and a more regular voice to the charity, to the community that we support, and to let people know that they're not alone, and we will support anyone who needs assistance with helping their child reach their peak potential. I'm literally reading off our banner right now because it's right in front of me. But what that means is that we all, if you're listening to this podcast and you have a child, and your child, you think, or they think, has neurodivergent tendencies, then it's okay for them to learn about them, understand them, and share those characteristics with other people and be embraced by society. And we want to create a more inclusive world. And when we set the charity up, a big part of its purpose was to support families and our communities and our world, seeing the power of neurodivergence and how it enhances our world, and a lot of other fancy words I could say, but we do a lot of good work. We shall tell you more about that in a minute.
Definitely. I mean, when you're a parent of a neurodivergent child, you have to learn all of the lingo. It's such a steep learning curve. And I want to pick up on one thing you said there, which was about, not being alone. Because it's incredible and incredibly isolating to be in this situation where you are a parent of one or more neurodivergent children and you feel like you're alone. But, one thing which I definitely have discovered since, getting in touch with PEAK and especially coming to the community events is that we're not alone. We're all in it together, and, community makes us strong. Apes strong together.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I think, I reflect back to when you were saying that, Karl, it made me reflect as a dad, as when my son, and a little bit of history here, when he was very young, when he got his diagnosis, and for me, I remember walking out of the doctor's surgery with this knowledge of a diagnosis, and essentially it was I was just handed a leaflet, and it was like, off you go, your child has a diagnosis of autism. And his school was right next to it, and we walked to the school because we thought we should probably let the school know. And I had, in my head, I was almost like on autopilot walking. I can't even for the life recollect what was going through my mind at the time, but I do remember a key moment, which was a TA, I believe. I think it wasn't the main teacher, but a TA put her hand on my shoulder when my wife was telling the news, or we were saying it together, and a TA or a teacher put a hand on my shoulder and said, "And how are you doing?" And for me, that was a moment of enlightenment, empowerment, support, because you think, when you're going through these processes that you're going to get, maybe the doctor should have done that, asked us the question, "How are you doing? Is there any questions you want me to answer?" and such like that. And, whether it was teacher, whether it was someone else, the fact that another human being put their hand on my shoulder and cared enough to ask me the question made me then understand that I need to be what I need to be for my kids, but I'm going through this process as well as a parent. And I think as parents, most of us, we're so focused on our children all the time. How much time do we take to stop and think the process for ourselves, and what are we going to do to enhance our knowledge? And for me personally, after I left, I thanked for that comment, but after I left, I got in the car, I called another friend, I spoke with that friend, who's actually a trustee of our charity now, if she's listening. And
sure she is.
Yeah, and then she gave advice to me, which I didn't know this at the time, but I'd given to her many years before as well, which was, you will do absolutely everything for your children. You are doing everything right. Those words of empowerment. And I listened to those words, and then I said to myself, diagnosis or no diagnosis, whatever the social label you have or whoever you are, I will do everything to ensure that you have every opportunity in life. And I do that for all my kids, and now we do it as a charity. for
That's
others'
fantastic.
kids. So yeah, there's a little bit there. I could go on more about it, but I don't want to take all the airway time.
No, I tell you what, go for it. If there's more to the story and there's more you want to share, go
Well,
for it.
I think I want to hear your experience with it as well, because there's two of us here, and also we're both dads as well, so
Yeah.
it could be similar, it could be different. But in terms of let me ask you the question, Karl.
I
With your child,
I don't believe I've had a professional put their hand on my shoulder and go, "How am I doing with it?" I've sort of had to reach out to
to find
professionals and go, you know what, I don't think I'm doing okay. Is there something else I could be doing? Or when our stories are obviously, everyone's story is a bit different. My stories is a little bit different to yours in the way that when my boy finally got diagnosed, it was more validation for what we already knew.
Yeah.
Because, we had a very long, challenging time, and we done our research, and it's like, okay, well, we know it's this, but it's getting a diagnosis for the sake of getting him the support that he requires because of it. Because there's many people out there that have come to me saying, why do you want to label your child? And my wife has told me a fantastic not comeback for it, but description for it. If you've got an item of clothing, it's got a label. It tells you how to wash it, how not to wash it, how to dry it, how to clean it. It's the same sort of principle. So this is my son. He has autism. This is how you communicate with him. This is the do's. This is the don'ts,
As a marker of, okay, sometimes we might disagree with identification markers, but let's think about when we have children, we name our children, we give them a name, and the name that we choose it might be because we like the name, or we're going to give it, it's a strong name, it's a good name, but we give them, a name is almost like a title of this is who I am, and it doesn't necessarily define who we're going to be. We choose that, and our children will choose that. But with these labels that we give or we use to describe neurodiversity being a label itself, the reason we do that is to assist in other people's understanding, because if we as a community can come together and saying, okay, well, I like this type of music, or I like, blue is my favorite color. That's, this, somebody had to label, I'm holding a pillow right now, that's blue. Somebody had to label that. And as a society, we agreed that's what it's going to be. And I think with neurodiversity, as they say, the spectrum so varied, labels have become one of these things that, because there's so much diversity in it, it's been hard to agree on what is the correct title. And if we go back to diagnoses, many diagnoses were called deficiencies and disorders, and now we're using terms like conditions. So we'll never, as a society, I don't think, 100% agree on what titles to use, what labels. But if its purpose is to create clarity and understanding that I fall into a bracket of individuals who process in a certain way, or I fall into a bracket of individuals, and I'm fortunate too, because like we say to many neurodivergents, we see in many ways as these gifts. Some things aren't always seen as gifts. A common topic we could talk about is PDA, pathological demand avoidance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a topic, and I'm sure some of you are listening right now thinking, how's that a gift? But let's look at the other side of that, and let's look at that. First of all, it's creating an understanding by using a title, a descriptive characteristic. But the other side of that is, what are the strengths with PDA, such as the sheer willpower of the individual having the capability to know what they think is best for them and not to conform to other people's perceptions and views on what they should do. Now, Karl, I know you know more about PDA than I do. So in terms of what are your thoughts on that, and looking at it not just from an identification point of view, but also a balanced view of PDA as well? Because I think a lot of people are listening and might think, my child's got PDA, and some people see it as negative. It used to be called naughty child syndrome as well. People used to give it quite a horrible label, but there's so much more.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is about perception. First things first, though. Before I answer that question, I'm going to get a picture of you holding up that blue pillow, just so we can put it on the socials. There you go. That will be going on the socials. It's the blue pillow.
The blue pillow. The blue pillow that's going to be on the podcast. Yeah,
PDA. From one perspective, it can be quite challenging because, if you're asking your child to do something and they are flat out refusing, they will not sort of follow instruction. Looking at it from the outside of it, it's like, well, that's naughty. That's, he's just been disobedient.
You're not doing what you're told, which is the
exactly,
what some might define as traditional parenting of like when we were younger, we did what we were told.
Yeah. All the consequence of that varied.
Yes, and it has massively evolved in society. So
it has.
Sanctions have evolved massively.
Yeah, but the other perspective of it is absolute willpower, the awareness of self to know what they want and what they don't want. Empowering.
That's an empowering thing, and I think this is why. Our listeners, if they listen, whatever neurodivergence you or your child or a family member has, I would always take a balanced view of the title and know that every parent, professional, is still learning about neurodivergence. There is no such, I'm a great believer that there's no such thing as experts because we're all still learning. And I have this viewpoint that if anybody tells me they're an expert in something, I wouldn't believe them in the first place, because being an expert to me, and that title of expertise, says that person isn't continuously improving unless you're using context differently and saying, well, actually, I'm an expert because I continuously improve.
And with autism being such a broad spectrum, you can be an expert in your child, but the information that you know about your child may not correlate to someone else's child who has ASD.
It's an individual journey for every single person who has a neurodiversity, whether it's autism, whether it's dyslexia, dyscalculia, a variety of other ADHD, a common one as well. It's an individual's journey in understanding who they are, how they think, how they process, how they manage social situations. And like you say, it's bespoke to the individuals, which is why the spectrum is so varied, because you can't put us all in the same category because we're all unique individuals, which is great. What a wonderful world we live in, where we have all this uniqueness. Now, of course, we still live in a society, so we do have to follow certain rules and regulations, reasonable, neurodivergent or not. We need to, I don't want to use the word conform. We need to reasonably engage in society.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to do that in a better way if we are more inclusive in our understanding about how people communicate, how we understand each other. And the more people that invest in understanding neurodiversities, the better relationships they have with their children, with or if a child is an adult, so a child is an adult, that's a contradiction. When a neurodivergent words apply.
Words, not wording. It's absolutely fine.
But moving into adulthood as well, because going into the working world, and if you understand the way that person thinks, the way that person communicates, and they're able to comfortably share that information with you. Because years ago, you go back, even 10, 15 years ago, maybe even less than that, and still today, there is a lot of stigma out there. There is a lot of prejudice towards the neurodivergent community because of the lack of understanding, as with most things. And we're only going to improve our society and our reasonable engagements in society if we increase more understanding. And hey, this podcast might be one way we do it.
I hope so. For the longest time, my outlook on the spectrum was very linear. I thought, it's a line, and you're either on it here where you're normal, or you're on it here where you've got ASD, and it's not that at all. And it's only been through a very steep learning curve, which has taken years for me to sort of acknowledge, accept, and learn more about, that I now have a much better relationship with my boy than a couple years back, where I didn't understand. And it was me having to learn his dysregulation, which was what his triggers are, what his behaviors are. And, now, my son, a couple years ago to where he is now, he's now smiling again. And it's a simple thing. He's like, oh, well, anyone can smile. No.
What it means to you.
Yeah, a couple years ago, there was suicidal ideation, there was school avoidance, there was absconding from school, to now he's like my happy little boy back again. And, the emotion's coming out now. I apologize. In fact, no, I don't apologize.
He took a picture of the pillow. I'm going to take a picture of him, because then you can see he's smiling now, but what Karl looks like, but he's sharing the moment he shared that emotion.
Yeah.
So he can capture that and remember that moment. But yeah, it is. I mean, we're both parents, and I dropped my son off at school this morning, and we just arrived at the time where his best friend at school was arriving at the same time. And normally I walk him to the door, make sure he's settled, because as a parent, I want to do everything I can to make sure he has a great start to the day, because it only takes one thing, as anyone who's got a neurodivergent child, that can throw off on the transitions and the drop-offs. And seeing his best friend arrive was a great booster for his started day. And I stepped back and I watched my son and his best friend walk to the main entrance together. And it's moments like that I would say to any parent, you have to really celebrate those moments, whether it's a smile, whether it's a happy moment, or seeing, them being independent, which is a great growth, because you have to hold on to those, because there are going to be so many days where you're tired, or you're facing challenges, or you're having battles with, it might be education systems, it might be local authority challenges and stuff like that, which I'm sure on this podcast we will get to conversations about that. But as a parent, please take those moments of celebration and bank them in your memory banks. Use them, because there will be those tough days, the dark days, and those little pockets of light will really keep you going. That's why why do we put photographs on our walls at home? Because when we look at those pictures of our kids when smiling on a nice holiday, it's little good past memories that help boost us in our lives. And so that's we're talking a lot right now about the wonderfulness of neurodivergent, which I think is important, because I know a lot of people talk about neurodivergent and the challenges, and we will get to a lot of conversations like that. I know we've talked some about that, but I'm kind of glad that we're talking about, we're celebrating it.
Major challenges.
Oh yeah.
Definitely have to separate.
But I'm glad we're celebrating it as well.
Yeah, celebrate the small victories, celebrate the wins. You're not going to win it every single time, but from a perspective point of view, if you celebrate the wins, they're bigger wins.
Yeah,
and even if it's something simple like, I managed to get my son out of the house today, or anything, the tiniest thing.
I mean, my son didn't speak, that was like, for a long time, he had a speech delay. And, I said, of course not. He's learning another language, because obviously we're bilingual in my family. And he also had, physical development challenges as well. So it would have been very easy for me to just focus in on all those difficulties. But what do? You do something every day proactively to deal with those challenges. And now he does speak, and he's developed because you do the work. And that can be really hard sometimes, because any parent knows it's exhausting being a parent. Karl, tell me what it's like to be a parent. Before I talk too much about parenting, you tell me, what's it like, not only being a parent, but being a parent of a neurodivergent child? There's a conversation.
Wow. Where do you start?
This conversation's going off in a random tangent.
Really has.
It's quite an interesting opening take. So I hope you're enjoying it.
Where do you start with something like that? I don't think a great proportion of people understand just how challenging it is. You get the perceptions of other people, and I've wrote down here right? I'm actually
because I always use a
using my
phrase.
notes
Yeah,
now.
good. Use your notes
Right.
because I've one thing I will say before you start on that is, once again, maybe I'm just feeding just the positive sides of it because there are a lot of challenges we need to discuss. But I use the phrase a lot, and some might agree that I feel it makes you a stronger parent because you have to develop skills that with a neurotypical child's development you didn't have to develop, and a level of elevated understanding and adaptive engagements, because it's less about conforming to what the parent says and more about understanding, and you have to navigate those challenges. And I feel it makes you a stronger parent. That's a common phrase that.
Yeah.
But sorry, I know you've got some really good.
No,
notes on that.
absolutely. You definitely have to have a thicker skin. Yeah, because you face challenges which most people can't even imagine. You know, for most, I'm not saying all, for most, leaving the house is a simple thing. You get them ready, put their shoes on, you put their coat on, you open the door, you go.
Yeah.
There's some parents out there, and I know this from experience myself, it can be such a challenge to get them to leave the house where it takes well over an hour. It takes even more, or you end up not going because the change in routine, the unexpected, the unknown, the sensory difficulties is too much. It's overwhelming. They have a meltdown, and that's it. You have to reset. But going back to what I was saying about other person's perception on neurodiversity, like sort of busting the myths, as you would. A lot of sort of common phrases you hear, they will grow out of it.
Cool. I mean, why would you want someone to grow out of who they are?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many phrases we use in society like that. But Blair, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. They'll grow out of it. It's like, no. It's like, you don't grow out of it. You grow with it.
Yeah, it's who you are. It's if I have, let's say, a sensory processing challenge, and let's take noise as a common one. It's funny enough. I was doing this with my son the other day, where I had the hairdryer on, common thing, and I had put it on the maximum setting, maximum heat, dry the hair as quickly as possible. Straight away, the ears were covered. Yeah. And I then put it down on the medium setting, and I asked the question, is this any better than this? Because the hairdryer had two settings, sort of a high speed and low speed. And that was a little bit better for him. And I had conversations with my son. It's like, what is it that is difficult for you in that, or how does that make you feel? And he said, like, Daddy, it's too loud. And okay, how's that one? Okay, that's a little bit better. All right. Or it could be the heat setting. The heating's too strong. So it could be a sensory one via heat.
It's good that they were able to vocalize.
Because not always they can do that.
No. And then you've got to pick up on certain behaviors. Like, well, I know that their hands go over their ears when I put the maximum setting on. So if I don't put the maximum setting on, is there a change in that? And that can be even more challenging when they can't.
When they can't even verbalize it.
They can't verbalize it. I
know he had a speech delay. It's only now that he can speak better. But if I tried to do that, a year ago even, I don't think he would have. This is for my other child. Yeah, he wouldn't have. But it was. It just goes to show that whether your child can or can't communicate, they still have those needs, and we as parents, obviously, we want to have that duty of care and that responsibility. But as parents, it's difficult for us to know what we're supposed to do all the time, because like we say, there's no book on parenting. And when we turn to professional organizations, whether it's the medical services, whether it's the education systems, whether it's the SEN professionals out there, we then hope that they'll have the answers.
Absolutely.
But
they don't always do.
They don't always do. I mean, let's say you've had a newborn child and you're asking that medical professional, what do they call is it the nurse who comes to the house?
Yeah.
Those
I can't think of words. I apologize. Not braining and words not wording.
But yes.
District nurse.
Yeah, something like that.
maternity.
Maternity nurse. We apologise.
One of them.
We apologise to the medical community for not knowing your title. We do have much older children now, but yes, the medical professional. We'll say the medical professionals that come to our house.
There you go. Yeah.
And they are professionals and they have knowledge. But what if that person gives a new parent information that professional believes to be true, but was wrong information? That new parent then follows that guidance, trusting in, and I've had this before with medical professionals, I've trusted in the knowledge of people who are in a field that should know better than I. And then it turns out they were wrong. Now, am I wrong for listening to them? No, well, I trusted the people there. But at the same time, if they were wrong, then that has a detrimental impact on my child because they gave the wrong advice. And so as a parent, I'm back to square one again. Who do I ask if the professional makes a mistake?
You beat yourself up
You do.
quite a lot.
Parent guilt,
Parent guilt is massive. But you can only do what you can with the information you've got. And there are...
Well said.
There are, there is a lot of information out there. Some of it is misinformation.
Yeah.
Some of it is, very factual. Some of it applies, some of it doesn't.
You've got to do the work. Bottom line is,
you've got to do the work.
Don't think for a second here you can trust one individual who has a whole books of accreditation. You as a parent, what it comes down to, as exhausting it is, and this is why we're called Parenting Empowered Autistic Kids. So our goal is to create a sense of empowerment. So you as a parent feel confident to know and have the knowledge. You've got to do the work. You've got to learn. Like the parents who came to our community sessions, like we call them the peak parents who've become volunteers of our charity.
Like me.
Like you. Yeah, exactly. Like the super Karl.
Yay.
We've got to be willing to do the work. And hey, do you know what? We brought these children into these worlds. So in some ways, we do have that final say, that duty of care. We can listen to professionals, but at the end of the day, we take all the knowledge and then we make that decision for our children on what we think is best. And the best advice I'd give to parents is if it doesn't feel right in your gut, you don't necessarily have to trust it from a professional. There's an element of balancing your gut feelings with knowledge. And if you're not sure of something, learn about it. Knowledge is power, after all, they say.
Knowledge is power, yeah.
Yeah. So, let's continue to get that knowledge. And I know it's exhausting and I know it's tiring and I know we've got loads of our lives going on. But like today, we had a community session. We did it's January. We did a planning session with all these parents. We had these weekly profiles for next week. And we, thinking on paper, writing down your plans for the year, mind dumping, clearing your heads, prioritizing what you need to do. These are the things that are going to help you then create consistency in your lives. Because if you're trying to do too much and never sitting down and thinking, okay, well, when am I going to learn about the things that I need to learn to support my child, then how's that ever going to get any better? So we've got to invest some time in ourselves and in knowledge and learning about
it can be very hard to find time for yourself.
So where'd you go, Karl? Where'd you go when you need that help? I think
bed. No,
bed. Yeah,
I definitely.
Rest is important though. Rest. You got.
Definitely.
You got to look after the basics: sleep, nutrition, exercise.
Yes.
Top 3. Every human being should do them.
Yeah.
And then I'd say the next thing out of sleep, nutrition, exercise is, what's your purpose? What are you doing with your day? What are your goals? What are you working towards? You got to look after the mind.
My calendar.
Yeah.
It also can be drowning. It's like, oh my God, I've got so much to do. How am I going to fit all this in?
Yeah.
Pace yourself. You can only do what you can do. And we look at you, Marco, in this respect, where it's like, oh, I'm teaching football today. Oh no, we're going to do a community session. We're going to dive out of a plane. We're going to walk 100 miles to London. I'm fairly certain if they hooked you up to the national grid, everyone's bills would come down by a third.
Thanks, man.
How do you find the energy for it?
How? Share with us these knowledge.
How do I tap into it?
I mean, listen, we're all individuals and we all think a certain way. And for me personally, my brain since childhood and the way I've been programmed, and I credit a lot this to my mother, who growing up, she listened to me, but she didn't let me make any excuses in life. And if there were any challenges, she would always continuously feed me, what can you do about it? And my brothers as well, you know, my brothers use great catchphrases with me. You know, the most common ones are, you know, sun's still shining, you're still breathing, keep going. And my other brother will say, because I said to him a long time ago, I need to get some new shoes, there's holes in these ones. And he said, no, Marco, you don't need shoes to run. You can run in socks. And so I've had that fed from my family. So I think a strong family foundation is
a lot of positivity. Like I'm hearing from that.
Oh yeah, but there were, you know, my mother, you know, my father, bless him, you know, he's no longer with us in this world. He had his challenges, but my mother, she, you know, took care of us three boys, raised us all, but had to work full time as well. So I had to, from a young age, obviously support and help out with my brothers. And, you know, apologies to my brothers. I know I wasn't always the best brother. Yeah, there was that from a young age, having to take that responsibility, but also being fed those messages of positivity but also accountability. Like I remember that if I made an error in something, someone was there to tell me that I'd made that mistake. And yes, that can create some anxiety, but I look at the other side of the coin now where I think to myself, it gave me methods of continuous improvement. So I had that as well going into it. And when I wake up in my
given these like tools to,
well, yeah, I mean, not in the most, you know, because some of them were quite reactive ways of saying it and quite stern. You know, I you know, mother raising three boys, she had to keep us in line, and she did a great job considering she was working and everything. But I also knew I had to take responsibility, and I think, you know, we're both parents. We want to give our kids the world, and my mum obviously did everything she could for us, but also I had to take responsibility from a young age. And I think that helps if you can teach your children how to, even the basics, which is hard, you know, getting shoes on feet, but just taking responsibility for certain things from a young age, that then helps them later in life. And with neurodiversity, sometimes that can be more challenging, or is it? Because there are certain things that they value. And if there is a way of drip feeding their value structure along with the things that they need to do to function successfully in society, then that's worth investigating. And fortunately, charities like ours are able to support parents' understanding on how they can do these things, because sometimes for parents, it's quite overwhelming. They're right in the thick of it. They're in the battlefield sometimes. So I don't know what to do. So we come in and we give those advice strategies to help. And I'm just, you know, what I say to a lot of people, this isn't rocket science for me. This is very much about me looking at a situation and giving what I think is my best idea to support. And yeah, that's what I've continued to do. And it seems to be going well. 5 years later to charity, here we are recording this podcast. I'm really excited about this. This is cool. Because honestly, it's just...
how do you think it's going so far?
I feel very relaxed, Karl.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, we've also got our feet up here on the sofa.
This is like, I'm almost led down flat here. It's a nice comfy sofa.
It's very chilled in the studio environment that we've got set up here. And
we have biscuits, by the way.
And we've got biscuits
going here.
And we didn't know how we were going to start this off. We could have started this off formally, and I probably should talk more about the charity and who we are and how we edit that in. In fact, should we do that? Shall I share a little bit about the charity?
We'll fix it in post. It's fine.
Yeah.
Share about.
So let's talk a little bit about EPIC, who we are, because we've been talking a lot about other things. But parenting empowered autistic kids. Right, first things first. Why the heck did you call it that? Why did you call it that name? Did you just want your acronym to sound like EPIC? Part of that might be true.
Definitely true.
I've got an autistic child. So for me, autism, supporting parents with autism was a big one of that. So parents and autism were two key words. Kids is obviously, you know, a shorter version of children. So that worked. And if you're interested, and empowered actually came from a good friend of mine, because I'd had like parenting, I had autistic kids, and I was thinking, okay, what's a word that I can use that is stronger than support, but enriches, and then empowered came from my good friend, and it just all flowed together. Parenting empowered autistic kids. So if you want to know how the acronym came to be, that's how. But if I take a step back, why did we create EPIC? I was standing on a balcony, very, very beautiful view. So I'm fortunate enough to have family abroad, and I was at their family home staring at this beautiful view of these mountains one evening in the summer of 2020, I believe it was. And I had a moment of clarity, and I'd given advice to some parents up at that point, but we'd never set any organisation up. It was just giving advice and such. And I turned to my wife and I said, I want to set up something that guides parents like us who, when you get that diagnosis, are left in limbo and don't know where to turn. And what if there was someone who could help guide you through that process? And so I want to set something up. And my wife knowing me, she knows I'm like, right, if he says it, he's going to do it. And so we went back and we came up with Peak Parenting Empowered Autistic Kids. And when it started, it was parental guidance. It was supporting parents with me sharing knowledge about the charity. What it grew to was from an advisory service to an advocacy service, where myself and then volunteers and then representatives and staff members from the charity started then joining on an advocacy point of view, where we were then not only sharing the advice to parents, but we were also sharing the advice to professionals, and then at times challenging those professionals to do what the law says or their policies state, or create with those professionals a level of understanding on a child's needs. And so that's sort of the birth from the advocacy side of things. So it became an advisory and an advocacy support service. It operates pre and post diagnosis. And what that means is, look at the volume of people who don't have a diagnosis. And you talk about myth busting earlier.
Yeah.
People are out there, and there are unfortunately professionals telling parents that you need a diagnosis to get support. And that is one of the biggest fallacies out there. You don't need a diagnosis to get support.
No.
And
I think it comes with its challenges.
Oh, definitely.
If you're able to have a diagnosis, it can sometimes be easier to get support.
Supports the process because it supports, well, as we said earlier, people's understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we support pre and post diagnosis. We support advisory and advocacy, and the big word here is bespoke. Every individual, we talk about the spectrum being, wide and varied. And so from our point of view, how can you have a neurodivergent service without having a variety of support that families might need? And so from our perspective, if we didn't know something, we learned it.
Yeah.
And we've grown over 5 years. We started off, and a big chunk of the work we do is in education and development. And we could talk about educational healthcare plans and other things around that, and graduated pathways later on. But we grew to support families with their difficult housing circumstances, children who have been a victim of crime or might go down the criminal justice pathway because they haven't had their needs supported. And so we've supported families in a variety of different areas. So it's not just in education, but in their daily lives, all the way up until their adulthood as well, to help them, because the goal for Peak is to help that child develop into a successful, functioning individual that goes into adult and then thrives in society. And that works because if we do that, our society gets better.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So yeah. So
if you could expand on these goals even further, what would Peak do?
What would Peak do? Obviously, I mean, resource is a big one. So, we need the resources to do it. Some of the things that we've currently done is, we used to say we started off in an advisory service, we grew to advisory and advocacy, and now in the last almost 2 years now, we've done practical projects. So we're advisory, advocacy, and practical projects. We've run forest schools for the last couple of years. We've run, special workshops and such. We've run neurodiversity inclusion fairs. So we are doing more and more events. The big one, obviously, is that we have, after 5 years, reached this point now where we would like to open our own community centre.
Yeah.
Where we have a massive demand and people are asking us to do this. And so if anyone's listening and anyone knows any support benefactors and who want to research us or meet with us, please do reach out, because we're going to be hopefully we're in the process of looking at a site now, but our next goal is to create the EPIC Center. And you heard it here first.
I think we'll put in the description, a link to obviously EPIC's website, and where people can
fundraise
get involved, fundraise, donate.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
We'll put all that information in.
Definitely. But yeah, our goal is now to run. And why? And why are you doing this, EPIC? Well, we're doing this for a number of reasons. By creating a center, we have a base where we can run more consistent support programs. We're going to be running therapeutic support programs. We're going to be running child interaction support programs, having a stable location for our own forest school as well. Our drop-in centers. It will add in, if we look at our banner's in the room right now, and we've got parental guidance, child development, documentation support, mediation, community support, other bespoke support. I've probably said that all too quickly, but those are just...
Say it again, but quicker.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, those are just catchphrase titles of a nutshell of what EPIC is going to do. But yeah, the big one is in answer to your question, we're going to be launching, looking to fund our own community centre, so that we increase the level of service. And the other one as well, as I should mention this, is EPIC is a national service. We started in Gloucestershire because that's where our base was, but we never denied anyone contacting us. And we've had contacts all the way down from Cornwall to all the way up in Scotland. Across my first ever tribunal I won was in Manchester. We get London clients, families contacting us as well. And we've supported neurodivergent families across the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And that's incredible, because it's, as a charity, I feel very, very honoured to have been able to support. We feel honoured that we've been able to support. But it just shows the scope of what we can achieve. And if we can add more resources to that, then we're only going to help create a better society. And I'll say this last thing. At the moment, yeah, before we probably switch to another subject, is that EPIC was created to fill a gap that isn't currently being covered. And I've always said to many people that my greatest success with the charity would be for it to become obsolete, because it was no longer needed, because our services were running at such a high level that neurodivergent community members wouldn't need external providers like myself to fill in the gaps of support that we provide. Now, the likelihood of achieving that goal is very difficult. I never say impossible, but my greatest hope for us as a society is that we continue to improve. And EPIC is a big part of that work that we're doing. And we're grateful to many professionals who love us and support us, and, schools and local authorities we work with who really advocate, how beneficial EPIC is.
From my perspective, it's essential. The work that the charity does is absolutely essential. Because even with, the guidance from EPIC, navigating the journey of, from My Plans to My Plan Plus to EHCP to alternative provision and tribunals and everything, it's a minefield.
So it's overwhelming. I see parents all the time, and I've spent because we've helped over 1,000 plus families, and I see so many burned out parents. I see so many. Well, what it was like when we first. I think, if I remember correctly, if I don't mind me saying, I believe there were tears on that first conversation.
There's been tears for many of our conversations.
Do you remember what was said? The words that were said that started the tears off from our first conversation. I think I do.
I don't, but my brain don't brain. No,
I remember it because I think I apologise to all the families I've made cry over the years, but I think the phrase was, "You're not alone."
Yeah.
You're not alone, and I hear you, or I believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Words like that.
They're triggering.
They are.
But in a good way.
Because you've never heard them before. You've never heard a professional. I mean, you'd hope you'd hear that from a professional, but much it has to be evidence-based. But to have another human being who fortunately is in a field and specialises in this field, to turn around and say, from what you've told me, you're not, I will help you. You're not alone. I believe in you, because there are so many services out there saying we can't do anything, we can't support.
Yeah.
We we're at capacity and such. And well, we're a
You're
charity.
doing everything
We're at
you
capacity,
can.
but we're still going.
Yeah.
And we never turn a family away in need. If we don't have an answer, we will research it. We will find it. We will never leave a family without an answer. And hey, nowadays we've got AI tools, but we won't go too much into that to help us.
We go down the chat GPT.
Yeah, exactly. But
unfortunately, chat GPT is coming for all of the jobs. So
it's going for all the jobs.
You're an advocate for chat GPT, but at some point it's going to take.
Do you think we might get some sponsorship from them as well?
Yeah. Chat GPT, give me your money. No.
But no, I think I remember from that conversation, I can't remember exactly what the words, but I guarantee it was probably one of those threes that, well, I believe you, we are going to help, and you're not alone. Those are the words.
I'm almost being set off now.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Go for it.
No, I refuse.
Let it go, man. Let it go. Let it out.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's because you spend so long fighting, and as parents, that's what you do for your kids. You fight and fight and fight for them, tooth nail to get an inch of ground, and it can feel like everything is trying to work against you, and your sort of sense of normal has just been twisted up and chewed up and spat out, so you don't know which way you're going. And to have someone just like, I'm on your side, I understand, I know what you're going through, and this is how I can help. It's the impact from that is massive.
Well, that's why we started the charity, mate, because it was like we've done a lot of good with this charity, and we've been very successful in many ways. But what you just said there was the reason we started the charity, so that parents weren't alone. Like, parents have what I had, which was that hand on the shoulder, and it's just, if they can have that and know that there is someone in their corner, someone that will walk on this road with them, then, it will be a lot more successful than trying. And we should never try and do anything on our own. We are always more successful if we collaborate and work together and such. But when you were talking about fighting for rights, I'm really apologizing. In my head, one of the things that popped in my head was a jingle in my head, and I was like, you gotta fight for your child's right for an EACP. Something. Like, I was like, the way you said fight, it was just like, yeah, man, it's so true.
Feels like
you gotta fight for your child's rights.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it. I mean,
why fight though? Why do we need to fight, Karl? Why can't we give the facts to professionals, and then professionals do what they're supposed to do for our children? Why is that?
Because that would be easy.
Because that would be easy.
Yeah. But then,
I mean, we get capacity challenges. We understand that.
There are challenges out there. There's capacity challenges, funding challenges, and resource challenges,
See, I don't know if I buy the funding challenges, because my view is, if resources were low, then we need, at least to evidence that we are moving things up the ladder. So many people sit there and go, we haven't got the resources, we haven't got the funding. If you haven't got the funding or you haven't got the resources, my next question would be, what have you done to get them? And if you can tell me, okay, I forwarded to the highest possible person I've got, or I've, I've started, there's a variety of things that we can do, but don't think that if you ever hear the phrase, we haven't got the resources, that's the end of the struggle.
Yeah.
You can keep going. And I say this to professionals as well. If you think that your local authority needs more resources to help the children in your constituency or in your communities, then before you put your head on your pillow at night, ask yourself the question, did you do everything you could in your day to not only be reactive, but proactive, and try and maybe make your lives a little bit better? And did you fight as hard as you possibly could to get the resources that those children need? And if you did, then tell the families about that. Tell our communities about that. Tell parents what you're doing. Because how many times have you gone to whether it's been local authorities or meetings, and they say, we know the system's broken, we know this. But how many times have they actually said what they're doing about it?
Yeah. So that this is broken. So what steps are you taking to fix it?
Yeah.
So, or what can we do to move forward instead of being stagnant here and just accepting? No. Is it no? We will not accept. No. There is no. this is what needs to happen. How do we achieve that? What steps can we put in place to achieve the goal, which is this? Everything, we should all be working together to do what is best for this child who has special needs.
Well, let's look at the SEN reforms, for instance. They talked about the SEN reforms. They were going to do it. It looked like they were going to publish the documents, and then they pulled, and then they paused. And there's two trails of thought on this. One, it doesn't give us clarity now on what those reforms are. But two, it gives them more time to hopefully do the right thing with those reforms. But at the end of the day, what is so hard? And I would challenge, and I've said this on radio shows as well, like I would ask our government to share the knowledge of what they're investigating, how they're coming to these conclusions, giving the public general updates on when the SEN reforms, because none of us know when they're going to come out, when the SEN reforms are going to come out, what's been investigated within them. And I know there are some, you can go online.
There's difficulties where information, it almost seems as though information's being held back from you.
But why?
Why is it all secret?
You could decrease the anxiety so many families feel. Like the big here's one conversation. The fear that my child's EHCP is going to be, they say to me, Marco, I'm worried that the SEN reforms are going to remove my child's rights to an educational healthcare plan. And none of us have any clarity. Now, I know that people have asked, even our Prime Minister that question as well, but we're not getting clarity. We're not getting, and you are increasing people's anxieties. And I know you don't want to say the wrong thing and you don't want to cause a panic, but have transparency with the work that you're doing. So if people like me, want to go online, because I've gone online and I've read some of these reports and these investigation reports and seen where they've taken reference information from and such. And that stuff is online and you can do the research, parents, if you want to. But we've got media services. You could give a variety of clarity updates to people to decrease their anxiety. I mean, what's your plan? What do you hope to achieve? You want to do SEN reforms? Okay. What's the goal for the SEN reforms? Is it, as some families and some parents fear, to restrict finances, to decrease the financial spending because we're spending too much money as a country? If that's the primary goal, then that's not a worthwhile goal, is it? Is the primary goal to improve the settings? To improve the system. Yeah. We want to improve the system.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to improve it, then they need to communicate that well. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's something that they don't do.
No.
The anxiety, every single step of the way, it grows and grows and grows. There's just that void of information. So what is the next step? What is happening? What timescale? The information they're reluctant to give. If they don't know it, say you don't know it. We can only work with the information we're given, and if it's so up in the air, the unknown is, and the waits for things, that's the worst thing.
It really is, and I liken it to, imagine you're in a job, and they tell you there's going to be redundancies, and you are waiting and waiting to find out if you're going to be the one, rather than we have to make a cutback of this amount of money. And we have to make a cutback of these amount of employees and such. Because then what does that do? That gives the employees an opportunity to work harder or provide their value to the organization. Yeah. And going back to SEN reforms.
Rather than, we want you to come in for a meeting next Wednesday.
Yeah.
So what's it about? We'll talk about it at the meeting. So hang on. So until that meeting, your mind's going to go.
Your mind's going to go. And then
it could be nothing. It could be the
our
worst
government's
thing.
becoming responsible for creating an increase, which anxiety is already high in our society anyway. But our government is being responsible for creating more and more anxiety. And I know, I might be going off on a tangent, a variety of different conversations here, but hey, it's our podcast. We can do it like.
Absolutely. I think on that note, should we have a little break so we can have a drink and refreshments and stuff?
Good idea. We'll recenter ourselves.
Okay, and we're back. How are you, Marco? Do you feel refreshed and relieved?
I'm good. I do. I've just been saying, when we turn the mics off, like, this is fun. and this is cool, and I really like that we're doing this.
I mean, my anxiety going into it has been building, and right up until I press that record button, it's kind of like, oh god, we're recording now. Make sure you talk about things and stuff, and I do apologise if my brain has just mixed things up. It's difficult for me.
Well, if you apologise for that, I've got to apologise for that, because
you've been a star. I've just let you riff. This is just.
I've gone off on tangents
every now and again and just go, yeah, I'm your hype man. This is
we're each other's hype men. But yeah, go on.
So what we'll do now, we've got a couple of viewer questions. So I've gone around the community and asked if they have any questions for us to talk about. The first one we've got is from Charlotte, who asks, how do we get our kids to sleep? Do you want to answer that one, or should I?
Well, I mean, as you've asked the question, the first things I'm going to say off the top of my head, and I do acknowledge that if you're listening to some of these tips, that you may have tried some of these things already, but consistency with those tips is very important. So whatever you try, you have to make a dedication to do it for a period of time before you review it and then do something different. If you start something and stop it, nothing's going to work. So consistency with the systems is consistency. Have the mind that you are going to do what is right for a long period of time. And I'd say the next word I would use is routine, because have your child understanding of when there's awake time and there's sleep time. And obviously darkness overshadowing is, when the sun goes down, that's a time to start settling the child down. So because they can understand, at night is the period when we go to sleep. So your routine. Now, that's quite a broad question, because it could refer to, in terms of challengings where it's nighttime, I've got our time schedule for bedtime routine. They've had their bath, they've had their dinner, they've had their time on their tablets, and they're lying in bed and they're still not going to sleep, and they're asking me 50 questions, and I want to go to sleep as well because I'm tired too.
Yeah.
What do I do in that situation? Which I'm guessing is probably, the context of this question.
Potentially. Yeah, I can imagine so, yeah.
So, if you know that your child is one of those individuals who can't get to sleep, now some have taken medicated routes and use things like melatonin, which we would always say you have to go through the GP and you have to go through the medical procedures. Do not medicate your children until you've gone through those medical procedures. Here's the realities of it. Your child can't fall asleep because the likelihood is their mind is still awake. And the only way to get their mind to settle is fatigue. And the right level of fatigue, where even though they're processing thought after thought after thought, what else are they doing? Now, if your child is in their bedroom, some top tips I've said about is doing push-ups, doing physical activities. If the body becomes tired, then the body will then start to want to relax and not be able to move, function. Now, the mind might still be going off, 1,000,001 thoughts. You can give your child activities. What did we used to say back in the day? Counting to 10 and such. Yeah. I've just dropped something. Counting to 10 and such is one thing that you can do. All the basics, but we need to evolve from that way of thinking. Telling your child to come up with an idea or a story or a strategy in their mind. Tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon after school, we're going to do an activity. And I want you to sit here and think about what that activity is. I want you to think about how that is. Why don't you direct their thoughts to something that is of their interest? Because it is very, very difficult for that young person's mind to shut down. Now, reading is something that possibly you might want to try as well, because it fatigues the mind as well, if you could incorporate that. I would steer clear from electronics. I know that children use them to regulate it, but the problem with electronics is that the dopamine impact through the devices can be so high towards bedtime that it will take, I would say, a minimum of 2 hours before bedtime to switch off the electronics, because an hour just isn't enough time. I don't know. But I've said a lot, Karl. Do you want to jump in on this point?
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with everything you say. With regards to electronics as well, not necessarily all electronics.
Good point. Yeah.
Because audiobooks have been quite a useful tool. You've got there are tools out there, so like white noise machines, and audiobooks I find are a good way. So if they are sort of hyper focused on technology, it's a good way. I mean, you've got Alexa with like screens and stuff on. You can even put it on but face it away. So they've got the audio input, but not the visual input. And it can sometimes work, but routines are definitely the key for that. Like you said, don't try it once and decide it doesn't work and scrap it again. You've got to keep trying again, and then you tailor it. You tailor what works and what doesn't work.
And if you need a bespoke strategy from our service, you drop us an email, you tell us a little bit about your child and their interests and such and their routines, and we will give you a suggestion and an idea to help. And, there are sleep consultancies and other people that you can talk to, but most of them will turn around and talk about routines, talk about consistencies, and talk about helping your child's level of understanding. Sometimes there's a challenge with sleep where the parent can't get out of the room, Karl, and that has to happen in a phased transition way. And the earlier you start that, the better it is, because they do get bigger, children, and if you don't have that method in place, then it becomes a lot more difficult to transition that child. And then you'll end up, with a 16-year-old who's still sleeping in the same bed as you are.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So you've got to be careful there. But yeah, sleep. So that was the sleep question. Hopefully we've given you some good answers there. Do you want me? I'm going to ask you this question next.
Go on then.
So we've got from Kerry here a question that says, how best to manage repetitive topics of conversation about your child's special interests?
Yes. Wow. Sorry, this is extremely...
Does this hit home for you?
Oh my God, yes. At the moment, my son is repetitively talking about a game that he wants to get, and we have said no, because we believe that this game isn't appropriate for him. However, it's literally been the only topic of conversation that we've had out of him repetitively for well over a week now. It's hard not to react to it.
Yeah.
I've on quite a few occasions have said to him, my personal difficulties with repetitive questioning. It's a bit of a trigger for me. I don't like repetitive things, the same things that go over and over again. So it is a bit of a trigger for me. It's about remaining calm. Calmness is the key on that. Let them say what they need to say to get it off their chest.
Yes.
And you just, you have that resolve and the calmness. This is the answer. This is not going to change. This is the reasoning behind that.
Yes. Do you make him aware? I find that sometimes with my son, when he tells me the same information over, one of the things is I make him, after I've heard it maybe 3 times, I say, buddy, you know what? That was really interesting the first time you told me it. And I did hear you the second time, and I just wanted you to know that I've now heard it, that you've told me this 3 times now. But I just want you to know that don't feel that you have to tell me the same thing more than once, because I was listening to you the first time. So I'm not saying that there's a negative to him telling me the same information repetitively.
Oh no, definitely. But I am
making him aware of it. Yeah,
definitely acknowledge what they're saying and take
but
it
also
on board and
making him
understand
aware that don't feel you need to say that again and again and again to me, because I heard you the first time. And I think if you make the other person aware of that they are being repetitive, that will then hopefully help them to eventually stop. Now, to be honest, repetition and neurodiversity go quite hand in hand, so that's something that's possibly going to continuously happen.
Yeah.
But one strategy in managing it would be some of the things I think we talked about. Cool.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're doing well with these questions, I think.
We're flying through them.
What's next?
Right, so we've got a question from Haley. What do I do when my school say my child is fine, but then I get the explosion from masking after school, and I see the emotional strain school has on my child?
Whoa, that's a question. That's a question probably a lot of our listeners would actually want to know the answer to, because masking is a big thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's give you some answers now, listeners. Okay, first things first. Okay. If a school tell you we don't see it in school, as parents, I want you, on hearing these words, to be reassured that just because schools don't see it doesn't mean it can't be evidenced. Our service provides, and there may be other services that do this as well, observational reports on masking. So we come into schools and we might observe the child in a school environment, but we also observe the child in a home environment, and we put that information together to prove that actually what is, just because the schools don't see it doesn't mean other people aren't going to see it. And then we share that knowledge with the school, because everybody, first of all, needs to be aware that this is actually happening. And when a school says we don't see it, we're not saying we don't believe you, we just don't see it. Don't take that as they don't believe you, it's not real. They just are saying that they don't see it. Now, unfortunately, as a parent hearing that, you might sometimes feel, no, you don't believe me.
It can make you question. It's like, oh, well, am I wrong? Am I seeing something that isn't there? But you know, again, that question hits home for my situation, because that happened quite a lot with our child, and I'm hearing a lot more from people that this sort of thing is happening.
It is happening. It is happening a lot. And unfortunately, it's going to continue to happen, because young people with additional needs or with neurodivergent characteristics do have challenges when they are conforming to school rules and routines. And unfortunately, that does come at emotional and mental health strain for them. And the first thing to do is to log and identify. I would advise any parent to record. You don't have to record your child. I know that is some parents do that, but just writing down what they're saying and what they're doing in the moments when you're having those conversations before and after school, specifically before and after school, because that's when you'll mostly notice what we call the meltdowns, the challenges that they've had, and then sharing that information with early help services, with family support workers, with professionals like ours, PEAK, with local authorities, with the schools, to build up a clear picture that this is having a detrimental effect, and we need to support this child through therapeutic processes that will aid our child in improving their circumstances. So in answer to your question, Hayley, what do I do when schools say my child's fine, but then I get the explosion from masking after school and I see the emotional strain school has on my child? Record it, share it, and make sure that the people that you're sharing with it are professionals who are going to do something about it. And if you don't know where to turn, you can turn to us to ask us those questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said.
Now, I know we're getting close to rounding off.
Yeah. Do you want to take this opportunity to talk about some what's coming up for PEAK? What are we doing? What's PEAK doing this year? 2026,
Karl. If you haven't seen on social media, we launched 6 for 2026, 6 new things that were happening in 2026. So I'll pick out some of those. But in 2026, the first things first is we are trying to focus on creating an increased stability for the charity to increase our services. And in order to do that, we've got to do some fundraising. And we thought, okay, we need to raise some funds. What are we going to do? Last year, we did the Peaks for PEAK challenge, where I climbed up to the highest peak at the highest refuge which is in Northern Europe, and it was a great experience. And the Peaks for PEAK challenge raised in total close to about £12,000, with my challenge and other people doing their own Peaks for PEAK challenges. That will continue as well. So we got Peaks for PEAK 2, and what that means, we call it Peaks for PEAK 2 or Year 2, is that we are going to encourage others to find an area of some altitude where they can go out as a family and raise funds for the charity. But also, I myself am going to be joining 2 families. So if you're listening to this podcast, if you want to do a fundraiser for the charity with me along, tagging along, the bonus is that you get the lead family support consultant of the charity coming along, and you get me for the whole day, hiking with you, doing whatever, but we can talk about your circumstances, giving you tips and advice.
Rent a Marco.
Rent a peak professional. But along, and it's that mutual benefit, because you're getting some exercise with your family. I'm joining you for that experience as well, and we're sharing knowledge whilst doing something healthy. So we're going to do that for 2 families. So I'm going to do 2 hikes with families to raise funds for the charity. But on top of which, we're launching a new fundraiser this year. I've just seen the logo today pop up from our creative team. It's called Parachutes for Peak. We asked the team, what can we do to raise funds? And one of the ideas coming up with let's push the founder out of an airplane. And
later on, the idea came to give you a parachute with it.
It was the idea to give me a parachute, because we're going to raise funds and we want them to continue to doing the work. They only wanted to add the parachute so I would continue doing the work.
Exactly.
But we are going to, I'm going to, in the summer, be jumping out of an airplane to raise funds for the charity. Now, I've been trying to get Karl, and listeners, if you can try and get Karl in as well, you can bombard him and troll him with the comments on this.
But for perspective, I have a big issue with heights.
He's got a big issue with heights.
I've flat out said there is no way.
I mean, I'm going to say that if we were to raise like £1 million for the charity with this fundraiser, because that's quite an ambitious target for a charity of our size. I'll
tell you what.
Are you going to lower the figure for me?
I'll lower the fee. I'll tell you what. If the Parachutes for Peak challenge raises.
Don't act too spontaneous.
I don't want to set it too low that it'll actually happen. I don't want to say it too high that it will.
Well, £1 million might happen. You never know.
Oh God! If we 25k.
Oh well, what a reasonable figure that. Now I should warn you that Karl is absolutely petrified of heights. But you know what? That is a rational figure based on our last fundraiser that we raised. It's quite an ambitious target, 25,000. So you've heard it here that Karl is committing to jumping out the airplane with me if the charity raises 25,000.
I'm just making a note here to cut this bit from the.
He's going to edit the figure or something when we reach 25.
25,000.
It was 20,000. Make sure you're recording this podcast in case Karl edits it later down the line on the YouTube channel or whatever we use to so that he said 25k. I'll remember it. But no, thank you, Karl. That's great.
I said the figure too low.
He did this last time. We did 100 miles for autism, and he's like, I'm coming. And the guy didn't tell me, he was having challenges in his knees, and he still came along, bless him, and did the first part of that challenge with me.
I thought,
and he never told me. He never told me he was having bad knees when we did it. So, we are.
I also had like a stinking cold as well.
You had a cold as well, and it was cold.
It was. I think everything was just stacked against me that day.
But you did. But you put your one foot in front of the other, and you did incredible. And we're grateful. So we've got Peaks for Peak, our fundraiser that's going to continue year 2. And if you want to be one of those 2 families, email us, and we will pick a family out of a hat from all the people that request. We will also be launching, Parachutes for Peak. Which is another fundraiser. Moving away from fundraisers for a moment, we've got other events going on this year. Now, the big one is our annual event that we did last year is Peak Day. If you are a company or an organization that would like to sponsor Peak Day 2, that's going to be coming in the summer of 2026. It's a big neurodiversity inclusion fair. You can come along and have a stall. You can be part of that community. We had over 2,000 people attend our very first one. And to give you some context, that was the same, I'm told, volume of visitors that the Birmingham Neurodiversity Fair had of visitors.
That's fantastic.
So that's incredible.
Fair play.
Yeah. And that was our first event.
All of everyone there, it's all word of mouth. It's all local.
It was word of mouth. We don't do any paid advertising, Karl. And, we've got an organic...
If there's any advertising companies out there that want to give us free marketing advice, that's absolutely
fine. Yeah. And if there are people who want to sponsor the podcast or sponsor Peak Day or... come along and do a show or an event on Peak Day for the summer 2026, get in touch with us. You can email communities@parentingempoweredautistickids.com.
We'll put all that in the description on there. So,
and speaking of community, we run community support sessions in Gloucestershire. We're going to look to expand those. We run online sessions so that we can run them nationally as well. So we've got upcoming dates on our social media. So if you would like to come and meet the team, and like we've done a community session support today, and get some answers firsthand and not have to wait for appointments, that's an option. But also get support from other parents who are going through what we're all going through. That's another event that's going on. We had a parent today come and said that they want to support us with a fundraising quiz night as well at an event.
Fantastic. So it's really nice to see people getting involved with it as well. It's incredible. It's empowering.
Well, it's great. I mean, it's, we are seeing parenting empowered, not just autistic kids. I mean, when we started off, we started supporting autism was the main thing. But now, I would have to change the name to parenting empowered neurodivergent kids, but it wouldn't sound nearly as right in the logo. So we will keep our name for now, and maybe we will evolve our title as the years progress, like the
parenting empowered all kids.
All kids. Yeah, I mean, we do focus specifically on neurodivergent children, but we are educating the neurotypical community, and Peak Day was a great example of this. When you bring together our neurodivergent and our neurotypical communities together, what we can achieve, and that was a great day. So yeah, some events that are coming up in this year, and if you think you'd like to get involved with Peak in some way and support us in some kind of an event, we had an art gallery last year, Karl, do an art show, and the 16 Gallery in Cheltenham, shout out to them. Thank you so much for the funds that they raised for the charity to continue the work that we're doing. So if you'd like to run an event for Peak or get involved in some events, then you can get in touch with us. Absolutely. As well. That's everything from me on upcoming. I mean, there's more on our socials, but
I think that's a great place to leave the podcast today. I want to thank my very good friend Marco for agreeing to do this with me. We've had a lot of nerves and a lot of fun talking about this, and we will do it again.
We will. This is the first of many.
This is the first of many.
And I have to say, this man is thanking me, but I want to thank Karl, who is Mr. Podcast himself. He has the knowledge more so than I do, but you've prepared the equipment, you've got the resources, you've advised me, like even on the microphones, what to get. You have, you've been an inspiration to me, mate, and I'm honoured to know you. So thank you for joining me as we spread this message of support towards others.
And as hopefully as the podcast grow, we're going to be introducing other segments to it. So we might do a live stream of it. We might do video recordings of it.
We're going to have guests. If you'd like to be a guest on the Peak podcast, let us know.
If you're a parent of a neurodivergent child, and you want to come and tell your story, please do. Please get in touch with us. Alternatively, if you're a professional in the field of neurodivergency, get involved. Come and talk to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who wants to support inclusion and improve the society that we live in, get in touch. Come and join us on the podcast. Share your story, share your message, and help us, as we like to say, help children reach their peak potential. We say it here, but yeah.
You've heard it here first.
Right.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next time. Thank you very much.
It's Marco and Karl on the mission, laughs packed in with a little ambition, award-winning charity. Yeah, that's fact. But we don't like to brag. This is the Peak Podcast. Come tell your story.